It's 6:34, and I'm going to call us to order. And my goal for this evening is to get us out of here before 8:30. Okay.
That's great.
Okay. All right. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda for tonight? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved. This is Amy.
Second, Nancy.
Okay. Okay. Davis, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Bill?
I abstain.
Okay. And Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay. And Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay. And Nancy?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. Okay. And next part of the agenda is, hold on a second, the public participation part. Let me just read an introduction before we get to that part, wherever it is. Public comment is not legally required, but we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns over issues. Through these meetings, our board models for our students how to conduct public discourse, and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and can demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. Are there any public comments? Okay.
Actually,
Oh, Jeff, I didn't see you on here. I'm sorry.
hi.
Hi.
I'm trying to get my things together here. So, and maybe there's a more appropriate time to share, but I wanted to just specifically invite all of you to a meeting that's coming up on the 15th. But my computer is not cooperating with me. Oh, I think I got here. Yeah. Did you all get an invitation to that meeting by any chance? I think you would have, Elizabeth, but I don't know if everyone else did.
I did. It was going to be my announcement. I'm glad that you're here to announce it. And anybody who didn't get an invitation, please let me know and I'll forward it to you.
Okay. Yeah, it's largely in response. Is this an appropriate time to
It is.
speak?
Absolutely. Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you. And the reason my camera is not on is because of my computer issues. But it's partially in response to the youth risk behavior survey that came to us. And there were some really, I think you had a presentation made to you as well by Courtney, is that right? Of the youth behavior survey results. Okay, so you're aware of that. So it's in somewhat a response to that. And I'm just going to read you the invitation, if that's all right. So the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion JEDI Committee for the Town of Windsor Select Board invites you to join in a discussion about building a more embracing community where all can thrive. We will outline opportunities as well as possible challenges with a particular focus on exploring strategies to support our LGBTQ youth and BIPOC youth. It's going to be Tuesday, February 15th at 6 p.m. We would love for as many of you who would like to be there to please be present. And it's there's a link that Elizabeth or I can share with you for that. Referencing the data received from the Youth Behavior Survey is alarming and shows heartbreaking percentages of our own LGBTQ plus and BIPOC youth experience in extreme distress, including thoughts of and even plans for suicide. And we believe that we can and must do better by these individuals. So The JEDI committee has invited Jeff Bart, who is the director of global diversity, equity, and inclusion at Paraxel, which is an international company, to help facilitate this discussion. He has consulted widely with businesses on equity and inclusion practices and policies, and he's going to help us to consider how we might be able to apply those practices and policies in our own context. In my experiences with Jeff, he sort of lays out the building of bringing together people who are affected along with allies and trying to build excitement about what can be done together. So that's coming up, and I wanted to let you know about that. We also are putting a diversity statement up to the select board for consideration, just to report that to you. We're excited about that. That's coming up at the next select board meeting.
When is that, Jeff?
When is that?
Yeah.
Good question. I believe it is on the 12th, if I'm not mistaken, but you'll definitely want to double check on that. But we're really happy. I'm trying to find that if you'd like to hear it, but if not, I can just forward. I'm sure you received a copy of that, Elizabeth, correct?
Yep.
Yep. So thank you, and thank you for all the work that you do, and thanks for hearing and considering participation in that. We hope that it'll be sort of it's not just a one-off meeting. We're hoping that it will be something that will it'll be the beginning of something, the beginning of a panel and a group that will continue to work on these issues and really try to think about what we can do for our kids.
Thank you so much for pulling this together, Jeff. I know that you had a huge hand in this. And I really am looking forward to that on the night of the 16th.
15th, I believe.
I'm sorry, the 15th?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Hold on, let me just. Okay. The night of the 15th, then.
Correct.
I'll make sure that the invitation gets to everybody.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer Aldrich, I see your hand.
I'm sorry. That was just me trying to get into my car.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us to tell us about that, Jeff. By both of those.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And so that was the announcement that I was going to make as well. Are there any other announcements or items for discussion? Are there any questions about the event that Jeff was just talking about? Nancy, I see your hand.
Is that for the youth also, or just for adults?
No, it's for the youth, and I think both, right, Jeff?
The meeting itself is primarily for adults. I mean, it would be wonderful to have youth present at the meeting, but yeah, we really are trying to look for leaders in our community who will bring support to them. But we don't want to do that, of course, without the voices of the youth as well. So, but the part of what we'll talk about is how do we in best practice access those voices without putting them in jeopardy of any kind as well, and being sensitive as well.
Thank you for clarifying that. I would have gotten it wrong. Rebecca?
Jeff, is it all right to invite other members in the community?
Absolutely, yes. Especially yes, people who are impacted or care about these issues are absolutely welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you like me to put it up on the community listservs for both Windsor and West Windsor? Would that help?
I'll be honest, my only concern is that we really want people who want to come with positivity. And if there are people we don't want to attract people who are going to show up to disrupt or to do harm. So that's
That's fair. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay. All right. Thank you again, Jeff. Okay. The principal's report.
I can share my screen. Does that work for you, Colleen?
Yeah.
Where's Colleen? Where's Colleen?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
I can hear you.
So this month we want to share some highlights from each school, which we're happy to say, despite the last couple weeks of rising numbers that are now falling again, we've made a real commitment to a return to kind of fun in school and some normalcy. And then we did finish up our track my progress and our exact path. So we're going to share that data to you for you and then send it along because we just wrapped it up last week. So now this month is kind of when we get to work with the MTSS team, which will be led by Brittany, Bridget, Angie, Colleen, and myself at separate meetings over the next 2 weeks to kind of dive into the data and changes that we'll make around it. Jen, can
Did we lose you, Kate?
Maybe. I know she was having a little trouble with her internet. So I don't even know if we're going to be frozen on a screen now. But I can access it and Jen and I can talk about it if that's okay with you, Jen.
Yeah, give her a minute. She might leave and come back in here. I think she left and she's coming back in.
She's
Is
in.
that you, Kate?
Yeah, it's me. I don't know if it's a storm or whatever, but my internet is terrible tonight. I heard Jen say she was getting in her car, so I don't know if we want to go through and kind of share Windsor's, and then we can go back to Albert Bridge. But
Sure.
we broke it down into a couple sections this week. So in our Windsor K4, we just shared some pictures. Amber's on the call. This picture right here, the boy at the desk, is from her class, and that's kind of a shot of foundations in action, which looks like it's kids writing on shaving cream or whipped cream on their desk to sound out their words. The kindergarten is working on a community unit, and during that time, it just so happened that it was National Crossing Guard Day, so we shared that celebration with Sandy, our crossing guard, and our local fire department came. A lot of the classes in our K4 had guest authors virtually for Read Aloud Day, and that's a picture of one of our second grade classes. In our yep, go ahead.
Our 5-6 had authors too. The next one is with our 5th through 8th grade. We have, can you hear me?
Yep.
We have our coaches joining our morning meeting and supporting our students with some mentoring and helping students at recess in some of the trouble spots with 5th and 6th grade recesses. We've had some winter celebrations, and we're implementing what I need now time, win time, in our 7th and 8th grade schedules for the second half of the year.
Davis?
Our high school, is doing their winter carnival this week and getting ready for winter carnival on Friday and having Spirit Week. We have the new semester that just began, and we had an academic celebration for our seniors. The academic support block in our student in the hub, our academic student service center, helping students in their, it was kind of our area of where we had some lag after a year of COVID and a lot of online classes. And we were happy to say nobody was in the at-risk stage and everybody was on target for their classes. And so we were celebrating our seniors this past week. A lot of college acceptances starting to come in, and we have our picture of, I don't think that's all of our winners, but some of our winners in the science fair on the left.
Colleen, who
Yes.
tell us more about the science fair?
I think I sent along to you after last meeting the names and the list of all the students, or I asked Lori to put them in the meeting minutes, but there were three, I don't have it in front of me. There were three categories: physical science, biology, psychology. There might have been 4 groups, and there were three, a top 3 for each category. And I believe our psychology group had 1 honorary mention. So all of those students, about 12 of them, will be invited to the state science fair.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes.
Davis had his hand up for a question.
Yeah, I just hadn't been familiar with what I need now. I was just interested to hear a little bit more about that.
So with our 7th and 8th graders, we had 2 periods in the first half of the year where they had specials. In the second half of the year, as teachers are looking at grades and trying to focus in on more where there's help. In our high school, we have the academic student service center in the hub where students can go. It could be on their schedule or teachers can send them there. But with the middle school, we didn't have that same model. So we have the What I Need Now, and the teachers rotate the students in one of those special blocks to go to whichever core academic subject that the kids might need support in. And Kate might be able to speak a little bit more if she's still on as to whether they're going to all rotate, but I believe it is exactly what they need at the time. We just started the semester, so they'll be divided up evenly to start in math, science, writing, social studies, and ELA. But then as we move forward after there for a few weeks, they'll stay with the class where they're needing the most support.
Yep. So what we did was we looked, and Bridget Ferriel was, she's our MTSS coordinator. We looked at our most recent Track My Progress, which was just this past 2 weeks. And we put the core special areas teachers. So Chris Lord and Scott Pooler are our math and ELA teacher. And then Zach Husband is our writing teacher. So the kids that needed more support in those during that period. So if you're in 7th grade, you go to What I Need 3rd period. So if you're needing extra support in math, reading, or writing, you would be with kind of the expert of that area, which would be Chris, Scott, or Zach. What it also provides, at that time, Bridget also goes upstairs. So that's another adult on deck. And then we have the 2 other teachers who teach science and social studies. So if kids also need more challenging work, or they need an opportunity to show more, then during that time, they're working with the other teachers on project-based learning or something like that. And then we've committed to doing this for the full semester. And we want to see or the full quarter, I should say. And at the end of the third quarter, we're going to reevaluate based on our Track My Progress scores and our Exact Path scores and the kids' scores in the classroom, and seeing if this time I kind of describe it as we're rolling up our sleeves and putting in the hard work. And I always tell the kids, we'll work just as hard as you, but we're not. I'm not going to make teachers work harder than the effort that you're putting in. We didn't get any pushback on it. I think it's something that they need. And if they were in any other elementary school in the district, or in the SU, they would not have that kind of packed schedule that our 7th and 8th graders have, where they don't have a recess and they have the 2 unified arts. We do make the exception for our band program and our performing arts, that 7th and 8th graders could still attend those at the same time to keep the integrity of those processes that were already started, like a band or a production. So I'm interested to see kind of at the halfway point and at the end what the success rate is and what would be a sustainable model for keeping this.
Yeah, thanks, Kate and Colleen, for filling me in on that. I'd also be interested to hear a report on how that shakes out at the end. That sounds like a really novel, promising initiative. So yeah, thanks for filling me in.
Yeah, I can't wait. And again, Bridget Ferriel was huge in dividing up the groups and showing the scores and really just working with the data to make sure that everyone was in the right spot. We do have our new Track My Progress data. I have it by the whole SU for by the whole district for the Track My Progress. And I can share that now, but then I can also send it along to you along with our Exact Path, because it's a lot to look at all at once. And I think once you look at it again, we would have had it to you quicker, but with all the COVID cases and the absences, we had to ask, I think, Ange, we asked for 2 extensions with getting our data to you, didn't we? Yeah.
Yes, we had hoped to have them done January 28th. So you have them done before break. Yay.
Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Go ahead. Whoever had a question. Question?
No question.
Okay, so I'm going to share this along with you. Oh, I put the wrong one on. But what Brittany and Angie did was they followed the cohort through the years, and we've had Track My Progress consistently. So the top one is all grades, and then as you scroll down, you can see each grade broken up, not individual students. So this is for the whole district, because that's the better way to look at Track My Progress. Because if we just looked at Albert Bridge, it would be too identifiable. So they're right in here with us looking at our 3rd and 4th grade. So we'll be able to look at this. We start this week at our Kid Talk meetings. We're all leading one, breaking down this data and seeing the areas that we need to target. And we have it done by both math and then ELA. And then hold on, let me share my next part. We started using Exact Path, and they do the this report just for us. This one is just for Windsor. I believe Albert Bridge is finishing up Exact Path before the break, and then we'll be able to look at it all together. So this breaks down the same thing, and it compares the first one we gave, the first diagnostic we gave, to the second, and it also breaks it down by ELA and math. And again, I'm going to send these PDFs to you so that by the next meeting you can put together questions, and we would be able to take a deeper dive into this data as well. Davis?
Hey, and I think I'm understanding the Track My Progress data. I just want to make sure. So when it says like current and that grade level, the data going back in years, is that cohort when they were in previous grade levels showing that Like that's how it, okay. I'm seeing Colleen nod. I just wanted to be sure I was reading that correctly. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I didn't fully hear your question. Did Colleen answer it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
Colleen
that
answered it.
was
I
the-
just wanted,
That's what I figured.
That's
Yeah.
the cohort
Thank you.
over time.
Yeah.
I appreciate you giving us that. I think that's really important.
Yep. And I will I'll share both of these the PDF from the exact path and then the Excel or the Google Sheets about the track my progress. And we can answer more questions about it next meeting. Oh, the other good news Windsor has is I think that we are finally slated to go skiing for our elementary program this week, which has been a project in the making, and that's an understatement. But it seems like when we finally had snow and the mountain ready, then we had that half day Friday, then we had the snow day on Friday. So fingers crossed we get to go this Friday. And this is the Windsor 7 sending 67 kids this year, which is the largest group that we've ever had go, which I think speaks volumes for the fact that both parents and kids are really looking for ways to get back out and get back into activities.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
very
can't
great.
wait.
Do you know whether they're going to, I mean, do you happen to know whether they're going to have the program open during break next week?
We won't have it through the school with like the transportation and everything, but I imagine that Escutney Outdoors will provide days of tubing and everything else. I'm hopeful that they would. I'm kind of counting on it myself.
Me too. All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? And it seems, oh, Rebecca?
Yes, I don't have a question. It's more of a comment. I just because it looks like we're going to look at Jennifer's presentation. I first wanted to thank Colleen. I accidentally received a tour of the school a couple of weeks ago when I showed up for senior capstones, and it was really wonderful. And I just want to thank you for your time. And I just wanted to comment on what I observed and felt as I was walking around the school. You know, I started writing some of it down because it was a very warm and inviting environment. As I'm walking around, I'm like thinking, are we in the middle of a pandemic? Really? But the students were comfortable moving around, and they seemed to be respectful of space. The classrooms, some of them were really beautiful. Obviously, I haven't been in the school in a very long time. And great student work displayed all throughout the school. I was just really impressed. I was like, my eyes were popping. And so it was like, wow, I think we all need to go through something like that. I also wanted to just comment on the senior capstones. I was just so impressed by the presentations I saw. Just a very impressive group of seniors. They showed competency in their presentations, excellent research skills and communication skills and subject matter, very relevant. So I just wanted to just shout great work to them and also their mentors, because apparently certain teachers choose to do that with students. It was just a really wonderful process, and I think we all should really be proud of what is going on based on what I observed and what I saw and what I heard from seniors that are going out into the public at the schools. So thank you again.
You're welcome. I'll make sure we get an update from the counselors for the rest of our seniors who didn't do their capstones yet. Most of them are students who are at the Hartford Tech Center, and they'll present their programs, final projects closer to May. And so that's another kind of group of guest panelists and people who come in to visit those. So I will get an invitation and find out the update on when people will be presenting those as well.
Thank you, Colleen.
Mhm.
David?
Yeah, we just mentioned the Hartford Tech Center, and the thought just crossed my mind, and maybe I missed it, but the Mount Ascutney board is supposed to have a representative on the regional board for the Hartford Tech Center. Chris Garnjos used to do that. Did we appoint somebody to do that? I don't remember. Nancy's saying no. I don't think we did. So that might be just a future, and we may want to wait till we reorganize, after the elections, but we should probably keep that. Maybe I'll add it to the setting the next agenda so we've got it.
You're muted, Elizabeth.
Sorry, Davis? And then Amy. Sorry.
Yeah, without getting too deep into it, today, do we know how often the regional board meets?
Yeah, it meets. Well, they try to meet monthly.
Okay.
COVID has interfered a bit, as it has with everything. But right now, or at least the last meeting was virtual, so you don't have to travel to the tech center. But it's nice when you can travel to the tech center because you get to. Oftentimes, they'll involve kids and some of our kids, and yeah, I know Chris Garnjos really enjoyed it. I'm automatically a member, as are all the other superintendents in the region. But we always had a board member, who did it. Certainly, if it's anything you're interested in, Davis, just to talk to Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'd be interested in learning more. Some schedule constraints for about next year or so, but if I can fit it in, that'd be interesting.
Excellent. Amy?
I was the representative before Chris, maybe long before Chris, I can't remember, but I was for probably 4 or 5 years. And it is just amazing when you go to the tech center and see the projects, the work that the kids are doing. And I don't remember the meetings being monthly, but again, it's been so long. And also it is one of the items in reorganization. It's in that list. So I think waiting until reorganization is probably good. Although, David, could you check with whoever the tech director is? Sometimes that first, or at least in the past, the meeting in March was usually on town meeting day, and they had something special then, like actually meeting with students, or we would go on the ride to the house that they were building, because I don't know which section it is, but they're always in the process of building a house.
Oh.
And they do it from scratch, and it's really amazing. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to buy this house, but I don't have enough money to buy the house. So I mean, that's how nice these places are. So that's all I have to say.
I'll check on the next meeting and I'll get that out to everybody.
However, if you check on it and get it to us at the next meeting, town meeting day will already have passed us by. Just saying.
I what I'll do, and I don't know what we can do about it, but I'll just email the next meeting to everybody. And then if somebody wants to go as an ex officio rep or something like that, or sign on virtually, I'll just let them know. There's a new Erica, I can't remember her last name, but there's a new
Erica Schneider.
Erica Schneider, new tech center director. I'm just going to email her and ask her when the next meeting is.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments for our principals? Is Jennifer here?
I saw her. Yep, there she is.
There she is.
She's back. Are you home yet, Jen? Maybe not.
Not yet. The roads are pretty messy out.
Yeah,
I got 2 younglings with me, so.
it's pretty icy.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to you, Jennifer. And therefore, let's go to David.
Okay, let me, I'll share my screen. I'll try to keep this relatively brief. Let's go back here. I assume everybody can see that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, just as always, the COVID update. Most of this, those who are parents already know most of this stuff. Those who aren't, I noticed today was the lowest case rate. I think it was today or yesterday, the lowest case rate, maybe even to date. I think it was 140 cases. We've shifted the focus under the new state guidance. Families do all the testing now according to protocol. Sorry for the spelling there, but they've been very cooperative. Our families have been really working well with us. We are going through about 800 family tests a week that we distribute to families. Lori Brown continues to keep up with it. She orders anywhere from 800 to 1,600 a week. And so far, the state's been good about getting it to us. I want to thank the Wethersfield School District because they set up a clinic last Saturday and two Saturdays ago and vaccinated over 75 people, which was great. And they're going to have a follow-up vaccine clinic on the 19th at Wethersfield School. I'll get that information out to everybody at some point, but it really worked out well. I think the principals still day-to-day have concerns about the ability to staff a building on any particular day. We have not had to close a building yet, and I think that's hats off and a tribute to the work that the teachers and staff, support staff are doing. People are doing jobs that they don't normally do, but that's so that we can keep classrooms going and keep kids in school. So hats off to the principals and to the staff. Other general updates, all budgets are adopted. The warnings are posted, and we're going to talk about a little bit about ours tonight. Sub-degree temperatures make the morning delay calls pretty tough. I heard tomorrow morning we're going to be in for some interesting weather. A lot of it depends, as our bus coordinator says, snow is not as big a problem as ice. The ice is even more of a problem. And throughout the SU, we ship a lot of kids by bus. There's a lot of bus riders. Windsor probably has the least number of kids on the bus, but now that we have incorporated, or merged West Windsor, we have quite a few kids who depend on that bus. So usually I'm up on a day like tomorrow morning around 4:30, and I get in touch with Mike, and Jim Taft is out riding the roads, and we've got a little system that seems to work, and it's not that fun, but we do it. Principals talked about this. We finished up the second round of Exact Path and Track My Progress. I think I'm recommending we kind of put that data review on maybe the next agenda or a future agenda, just so that when Kate and Colleen and Jen send out those scores, we can do a little bit of a deeper dive. We thought this year was going to be a recovery year. What we're learning is that we're going to need a recovery from the recovery year because it didn't turn out to be quite the recovery year we hoped it would. I think we're making some progress and we're keeping kids in school, but there are still obviously those issues around absences and teacher absences that break the instructional pattern. What we have noticed, and I know Angie's on the call too, but Exact Path, it's new this year. We've been through 2 rounds now. Part of it is trying to get the right assessment that's going to line up better with SBAC, so it's a better predictor of student progress if we're going to do it multiple times over a year. Track My Progress never really aligned well with SBAC, so we're hoping so far it looks like Exact Path might, but it's again, we don't want to spend our time assessing when we need to be instructing, but a lot of this is necessary and called for, to be able to keep those accountability functions in place. We want to look at the recovery data. We'll have a pretty at the next SU meeting. We're hoping to begin to unveil some of that recovery data now that we have been through those 2 rounds of Exact Path and Track My Progress. Rather than do it by district, we'll do it by SU, and I'll invite the other board members. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. Did I hear somebody's hand go up? I can't see anybody.
Yes, it was me, David. It's Angie. I just wanted to say, because this is the first year of full implementation with Exact Path, we are surveying teachers as well as going into the buildings to talk directly with students about their Exact Path experience, so that we can make sure that we offer the best experience for our students and our teachers. So we will be reporting out on that data, I think in the March meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have gotten reports mostly from one school that the middle school kids they didn't really like it that much. And so that'll be great when Angie and Brittany and Patty go out and actually do these little meetups with students and try to get that feedback. I think kids just sometimes do feel assessed out, and especially during the COVID times. We also finished up, I think either today or tomorrow. I think tomorrow will be the last day for NAEP testing, the National Assessment of Elementary Progress. I might have talked about this before, but it's actually going on right now. Well, not right now, but this week. And that's a test that gets data at the state level. We don't get any local data. And it really is tedious to organize. You have to work so closely. They send in people to proctor those tests, but there's a lot of paperwork up front and paperwork on the other end. And again, it seems to happen at least every year, if not every 2 years, and the state won't let you off the hook with this testing. And again, it's just another test those poor 4th and 8th graders have to take. It does give the Vermont data, and quite frankly, we've done well on the NAEP in the past. Vermont scores if not the top 5, always within the top 10. So I think that's why they like to keep going, because it shows that Vermont scores well compared to the nation. Equity audit. We're working still with Springfield. I'll talk more about this at the SU meeting. We really do want to get a baseline around equity practices, policies, procedures, protocols, curriculum, instruction, library materials. And we do have an RFP that we're working on with Springfield District, which should be ready. I'm just waiting on Springfield. Actually, I've signed off on it, and then we'll get that out to several providers. If anybody, Elizabeth, especially you, if you know anybody that does that kind of work, I'll certainly get it out to the people we've worked with in the past, and certainly including people like Mary Gannon and Melissa Crum. But there are a lot of organizations out there that do this kind of work. You want to make sure with the equity work, we talked about this before, that we're solving the right problem. We're not working hard to solve a problem that doesn't exist. So then we'll prioritize after that audit and decide where we want to start. I think we could probably start the audit by, I'm hoping late spring. Depending on how late it gets, it might have to dip into the summer and into next fall. A lot of it's done by survey and survey analysis, but I think there'll also be some on-site work as well. Well-deserved vacation next week. And depending on who you talk to, whether it's a parent or a teacher, there's a different level of excitement about that. But hopefully everybody enjoys and the weather holds up. And then a second quarter financial update. I'll show you that when I'm done with my report. I just got it on Friday, and then I had to send it back to Ed. And but I'll share it with everybody tonight, and then I'll send it out. Also, I can probably send it out tonight as well. If not, I'll send it out first thing in the morning. Negotiations. Bill was the Mount Scottney representative and actually the lead negotiator. Teacher's contract is just awaiting. Tina tells me we're down to one signature now, and then that'll be done, and then we'll start putting together the retro checks and the new contracts. We finished up the support staff negotiations. They were completed last week, if not the week before. Bill, I can't even remember. The weeks just run together. And we're just reviewing that first draft, and hopefully we'll get that out for signatures. So I feel good that we've got multi-year deals with all of our unions, which is great. Bill, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Well, I'm quite happy with the support staff. It gives a early boost. Believe over 3 years, it raises median pay 20%. So I hope that will ease off some of the hiring crunches. Here's to crossing our fingers. But we also gave them a 403B match, which was nice. And yeah, I'm happy with it, and I believe they were too.
Yeah, no, it ended on a very good note, and again, it really is partly about certainly taking care of the people who are here, but it's about retention and acquisition of new staff. And we'll probably have one of the, I don't know how you feel about this, Bill, because you did a lot of research on contracts, but I think we'll probably have one of the better support staff contracts in the region. So I'm looking forward to really attracting support staff to us.
I mean, my baseline, of course, tends to be Hartford, and we with this new contract, we blow them out of the water. To be honest with you, there's really no competition anymore. You're talking a difference in almost $3 an hour just for starting pay at entry level.
That's great. That's great. So stay tuned. We should have that signed. I'm done, Elizabeth, unless there are questions.
So are both contracts multi-year?
Yes, both contracts are multi-year. They're both
3 year.
3 years.
That's great.
Yeah.
Of course, the teacher contract, the 3 year includes this year.
Right.
And then the support staff begins next year. So at least it's still tiered.
Yeah, and we'll have to ratify the support staff contract probably in March or either during the reorganization. We'll figure that out, but we just want to make sure it's the right draft before we do that. Yeah. So the teachers are in year one this year of a 3 year. That's why we have to do retro checks and new contracts. But the support staff will go right out to 2025. So that's good. No more of this year to year negotiating. It was real, as you remember, Elizabeth. It's taxing, and it's a lot of work.
It is, and I also I have come to understand that Scott is not going to be on our board anymore, or on the SU board anymore. So it will be good to have somebody who can kind of have time to get their feet wet when whoever it is agrees to represent Heartland.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I've already started today, actually, drafting some ideas for the next round. So it'd be good to, after the reorganization, if I'm voted in, you never know, to create a team right off the bat to begin a discussion, because 2 years down the road is going to come awfully quick.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yep. I see you all as a bunch of dots, so I'm going to turn my camera off and hope that everybody else comes back. Did everybody come back?
Did that fix it?
No, I got a note saying weak internet. Now you all get to look at my nephew, who's now almost 30 years old.
I was going to say that's a cute picture.
That's him as a kindergartner. Okay. David, I have a question for you.
Sure.
It doesn't really have to, it's under your aegis, but it doesn't really have anything to do with your report. But
Okay.
in thinking about the pupil weighting study and conversing with you about the conundrum that the legislature is currently having with English language learner weighting or not weighting, I wondered how many English language learning students do we have in our supervisory union and in our district? Do you know?
Yeah, and actually, Angie, you'll probably be better at answering those questions, right?
We have 4 students right now who are eligible to receive services.
That's in the district or across the supervisory union?
Across the supervisory union.
Do you know how they break out by district, Angie?
We have 3 at Manascutney School District and 1 at Heartland School District.
Okay.
Does that include monitoring students?
That's a good question. I mean, those
just service students. We're not monitoring any others. They didn't qualify. So this is my 5th year in this seat, and well, not this chair, but as curriculum director, it's first year that I've had ELL students, and it was several years prior to that that we had ELL students. So it's exciting.
Angie, do you want to give
It is exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. Do you want to, Angie, just give a 2-minute update on? I mean, we've been really searching high and low for an ELL instructor. We do have the consultant that comes in and works with us, and we do have a couple of people who have done some good work. But because I know you had somebody on the hook, did that fish get away, or are we?
So I can't really talk about that. I think that would be premature. But we have had advertisements out for ELL. We've had a series of misfortunate events where we had someone hired and then that person was not able to stay with us. But we do have a fantastic consultant. She works in the Essex Westford School District. She comes down occasionally to work with staff and to work with students on this testing. She is more consulting with the staff and with families and answering questions and so forth. And she will be a key support for our EL teacher. And yeah.
So I gather we don't have anybody at the moment. What happens to the students who need ELL services?
We are putting together the schools have responded by putting together a support plan for those kids.
Under the direction of that consultant.
Yeah.
And can you just explain to me what that entails?
So for example, in one of our schools, they have hired some teachers, licensed teachers, part-time to come in and offer support in the classroom. The good news is that our EL learners are on the very young side. So, I mean, what I've learned about EL, English language learners, is that it varies so much from child to child because it really depends on their particular situation, whether or not they have their native language being spoken at home, whether or not they, how long they have been in an English speaking environment, how much English is spoken at home. And so each child needs to be treated as a unique individual, and their plan is based on their particular needs. So in the absence of an EL teacher, our classroom teachers and support staff have stepped in to help support those children in their language learning to the best extent possible. It depends on if there are support staff available as well.
Yeah, and I think, Elizabeth, the other thing that could happen, and we run into this in special education too, if you can't find a particular a particular service right away, then what happens sometimes is on the back end, you end up with, compensatory services. You try to make up for those services. So I think some of that will happen too.
Yes, Bill, we don't have any students who qualify.
I'm wondering why is the huge disparity between the number of ELL students between Hartford and Windsor Southeast. It's huge.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, when you said 3, I'm like, what?
Yeah. So
yeah,
it is quite amazing. And with Afghan refugees coming in, that number has the potential to really change. We have not heard of any of those students coming into our particular school system, but I know that the Hartford ELL coordinator has reached out and would be open to creating a full-time position with our half-time position because they need ELL services. All over the states, there's openings. All over the state, there are openings because ELL teachers are in high demand and there are not a lot of them.
Yeah, she's a little overwhelmed right now.
I bet.
Yeah. We float around 12.
Yeah, okay.
About a dozen.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's interesting.
As a former ELL teacher, I wish that I could help. Amy,
You
I see
shouldn't
your
tell us that.
We
Don't tell
could
us
get
that.
you a provisional, Elizabeth.
Yeah,
In
right.
about a half a minute.
I think my plate's a little teeny bit too full at the moment, but
Maybe just a little.
I was gonna
Well,
say,
if you
just
ever want to
give
switch
us the word.
careers, come on back.
Amy, I see your hand.
The difference in numbers probably has something to do with access to all the other services, of which Windsor happens to be kind of in the middle of nowhere in terms of access, whereas Hartford has, they're a seat of state services.
Yeah. A lot of Portuguese.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Both of those are interesting. Well, thank you. So, Angie, you are the person who, you're the point person for ELL coordination.
Yes, I am the
You should do
ELL
the short
coordinator
smoke.
for the supervisory union.
Okay.
That does not mean I really know very much about ELL. I'm learning a lot.
Okay.
Who does your WIDA setup?
So our tech department got us set up in WIDA, got our kiddos set up to take their access test. Our consultant has been down to deliver the access test. Access test is the test that all ELL students have to take, and it's open now until I think end of March or something. But anyways, our kiddos have taken it.
What a god-awful program that is from a technical standpoint.
They got us fixed right up.
Okay. Anybody else have any ELL related questions?
Oh, you know what? I didn't show you the financials either. Do you want to take a quick look at those, Elizabeth?
Sure. Thank
Yeah,
you.
let me share my screen again. Hold on a sec. This will take 2 minutes.
I'll start my timer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, let's try this. Can everybody see that? Can you make it a little bigger? We good?
Yep.
Yeah. So the top here is the revenue. And the first 2 quarters, you pretty much anticipate all the revenue that's going to come in is going to come in. And you can see that's pretty much what Ed has, the bottom line total revenue, 98%, 98.77% predicted to be in by year end. And then you go to the expenditures and you can see if you go down, we break it out, wages, benefits, contracted services. And if you just want to take a peek at that, I'll send this out to everybody just so you've got it. And if you look down the very bottom, you compare the projected revenue with the projected expenditures. And right now we're projecting a surplus of $258,398. That, and obviously that can change in either direction over the next 2 quarters, but it's better to look at that than to look at a deficit.
Excellent.
All right, we good?
Yep. If you
All
could
right.
email that out to all of us, that would be preferable.
I will. Then you can look at it in a little more detail. So I'll get that out to you.
Jennifer Aldrich, are you at a steady place?
I am steady.
Great. Good. Okay, because our next item is a discussion of interdistrict. Well, first, do you have anything that you'd like to add regarding the principal's report?
I'm assuming we shared the one that Kate has. So, I mean, yeah, I think the slides speak for themselves. I guess I could go to a couple of things I think is sort of the experiment of education in this new pandemic. We're really looking at small group instruction, which we know is good instruction anyway. And I guess I wanted to share if, I don't know, Kate, if you've already done that, sort of the numbers of what that looks like at Albert Bridge. So Albert Bridge can be sometimes a kind of like a test case. So I don't want to do that. Let's see. Present a tab. Hold on just a sec. Sorry about this. Okay. So that's coming up. So the 2 things that we're really working on, one is circling up, which is a part of the restorative justice practice. Working with our 3rd through 6th graders on that, and we're doing a lot of circling up. So we've got one of our classes over here doing some circling up. But really looking at small group instruction, which is groups of 2 or 3 kids learning with a teacher, while other kids are practicing independent work at their level and sort of going through small station work. And here's our preliminary data on it. Let's see if I can get down to it. So the Track My Progress, which is one of the assessments we've done, and we've done pretty consistently from fall to winter. And what I'm showing you here is the growth. And so the green is what we would call beyond expected growth in math. This is math. From fall to winter. So they grew more than what we normally expect. The blue are the percentage of students who grew at the level we would normally expect a student to progress. And what we did is we looked at these kids here who were in the red and in the yellow, which red is well below expected levels of growth, and then the yellow is somewhat below expected levels of growth. And what we did is we looked at those kids, and what we found are those kids are already scoring, for the most part, in the green and the blue. So what that tells us is, you know, we've got a few kids who didn't make significant growth, appropriate growth that we would want them to be making. And, you know, so that's about, you know, 30% of 30%, which is what, 9%. Of our students did not make the growth we needed, who really needed to make some significant growth to move forward to get in the proficient or above proficient categories. And what that also tells us, which I think is interesting, is for those kids who are excelling, we may not be at a point where we're meeting their needs as well, consistent enough. So we do have some kids who were certainly in the green before and made significant growth, beyond expected growth. So we've had kids who are in the green in both areas, or in the blue and then in the green for the growth areas. But we do have some kids who were not meeting their needs at that point. So just kind of an interesting way of thinking about how we're setting it up. And so this is the same thing with ELA. It looks a little different perspective. So the green and the blue here is where they tested. So blue is proficient and the green is beyond proficient in the ELA growth, or more than expected. And then over here, what we've got is of those who are in the red, we've got pretty large percent who are well below expected, which tells us that we need to take a look at what we're doing with our ELA approach, our English language approach, and see what we need to do to adjust for those kids. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah, Rebecca?
Rebecca, I see your hand.
Yeah, those were great, Jennifer, and thank you for that explanation. How do you, or what do you do with that data? So it's very clear. It's giving you some information. How do you come together with your staff and say, okay, this is what we're seeing. How do we challenge those that already have excelled? How do we challenge them even more so that they are not just lagging or staying in the same place? And how do we respond to those that are clearly struggling?
Yeah, so we have multiple approaches, but it's through our multi-tiered systems of support process. And we have different versions. So Kid Talk would be a time when we might look at a kid who is, let's say, reading at or above grade level, but not making the kind of growth we would want. And we would take a look at what they're doing and seeing if we can figure out being more diagnostic about what might be slowing them down. So it's really about getting to that individual level. So when we talk about meeting kids where they are, that's the approach of saying, 2 or 3 of us in a group. And even sometimes it's one person in a group, because that's really acknowledging that this is what they need for their next step. And we're going to do our best to meet them there. And that takes a really different way of thinking about education traditionally, right? So we're not sitting all in chairs, staring at the board, listening to somebody talk. We're really down there with the kids, looking diagnostically at what it is they're doing, what's getting in their way, and either trying another round of the same information, which we call double dosing, or if that doesn't work, we know that we need sometimes a different way, at which point we go to our interventionist, or even our special educator can give us ideas of different ways of approaching the learning for that kid. That's really what these afternoons that you guys have blessed us with has really allowed to happen, is that time regularly for teachers to talk with the interventionist, with the special educator, with each other, to look at what the kid is struggling with and what might help, so they can give it a try for a period of time and then see if that works.
Thanks.
I like that approach, Jennifer. That's really, really novel and interesting. Thank you for that. Okay. Are there any questions or concerns or comments about life at Albert Bridge? Anybody? Okay, then I'm going to move on to the next part of the agenda, which is our items for discussion. Jennifer, you weren't really here when I said at the start of the meeting that I am determined for us to end by 8:30.
I heard that.
Okay. Are you leading the discussion on intra-district?
Yeah, I'm happy to walk through kind of the thinking on it right now, and what I hope for next steps, if you'd like me to.
I'm sorry?
I'm happy to do that if you would like me to.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to again present a different tab this time. And what we're looking at, so since the merger, we've talked about ways to make between these 2 schools. So inter-district school choice. So between our 2 schools, so it should say intra, that's okay. And what I've done is I put some initial thinking into this based on a past experience of a school that was looking at how to create equity with school choice. And there's just some guidelines of what I was thinking of in the process. And what I would like to do is just kind of put it out there and suggest that we create a small committee of people to really dive into, do we want to do this with some formal approach? And if so, what would that look like? So in thinking about it, here are the major concerns I think we want to look at. One is making sure we create equity. So equal not being the same as equity, but really thinking about equity for the students, particularly those who may not have the same socioeconomic capacity or who may be more interim in their homing issues, as well as equity for the students within the schools. We want to enhance opportunities within our school district. So it's quite lovely that we have these two opportunities for two really interesting, slightly different schools for kids to experience. And sometimes parents may have a preference about what they are. I think provide some clarity about the process. At this point, it's been a little bit of a toss it to the principals, and we sort of set one sort of guideline at the very beginning of this, and that's the only guideline we've stuck to. So we like to really think about what the options are and what the possibilities are, and try to ensure some stability of the student population. So we're not always running in the ups and downs so much, but kind of make it more even-keeled between the two schools. So from there, when we think about school choice and we think about equity particularly, we want to look at things like transportation. We want to look at those transient families, so families who may move in later in the summer, for example, before school starts. So thinking about, can we hold a spot or two open for families like that? And any language barriers. Certainly we're starting to get a couple of English language learners in our school, and sometimes those come with families that speak a different language at home. So we want to make sure whenever we're reaching out, we're also looking at those things. We want to look at keeping balances between the capacity of each building, so it doesn't look like one school, for example. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Albert Bridge tends to be smaller. So people aren't saying, well, in this school you get 10 kids in class, in this school you have 20 kids in the class. We want to kind of look at more of a balance between the schools in terms of how many kids are in a class. So it doesn't show up so much in that form of inequity. So students are really getting a very similar type of classroom experience. We want to make sure, I think, and this is again something that would be in the discussion, but that those who live in the town have their hometown school as a guarantee for their choice, and creating classrooms that are roughly the same size to the greatest extent possible. And I think we want to make sure that we are doing some good positive imaging. I think we've got some wonderful stuff going on in our schools. And I'd like to think about a way, even if we don't go with any kind of school choice, I'd still like to think about a way to really celebrate and highlight that. And I was thinking like the work that, we've got some local experts who did the Ascutney Outdoors kind of advertisement stuff. It would be really nice to get something out there in terms of that. Let's see, the hometown piece. Yeah, so I think it'd be important to think about, if you move into Windsor, let's say, that you definitely have a spot in Windsor. It's just whether or not there is an additional opportunity for you to go to West Windsor, or vice versa. So if you move to West Windsor, that your child will definitely go into that school, but there may be an opportunity to go to Windsor based on capacity and all this other stuff. Does that answer the question? Thank you. All right. Okay. So let me break down the equity just a little bit more. So some thoughts anyway. In transportation, making sure that we provide transportation going between the schools somehow. Right now, we currently do have it going from West Windsor to Windsor. We do not have it going from Windsor to West Windsor. Transient families, like I mentioned, one of the things we want to make sure we don't do is exclude some of our more at-risk families, if you will. And a possibility is doing a lottery system that happens maybe twice, once, let's say in the late spring, and then once closer towards the start of the school year. And making sure we have a way to identify any language barriers so that we can reach out to whatever those organizations are that work with those groups to get the information out there. Thinking about how we balance it. These are just some of the things that I was thinking about. So making sure, oops, sorry. Looking at best practices and physical space, how big we can get. And I know COVID makes it a little different, but you know, just looking at the different rooms and the different sizes, I think is certainly necessary. I think one of the practices might be determining how many town residents you have from the hometown school, identifying remaining spots, maybe reserve a spot or two for move-ins over the year. I don't know, you know, for us, sometimes the move-ins also coincide with a move out because we're kind of limited in buildings in West Windsor, but Windsor may have more ability for people to move in without people needing to move out. And creating classes roughly the same size. So making sure we have a process where we are not making one school primarily about having a smaller class size. It's going to be a smaller school, but not necessarily a smaller class size. So my to-do list, as I was thinking about, is first share it with you all. Then I think we want to get some feedback from teachers in our community, maybe even, you know, others who don't have kids in the school, or right. So people just reaching out to our community. I think a small group to get together and discuss this would be really helpful. There certainly should be a trader, probably from maybe Kate, Colleen, myself, maybe two of the three of us could work on that with some school board members, community members, and some staff members to create some kind of an approach that would look like a pretty decent proposal if we decide to go this way. So these are just different things that would be a part of the process. And that could be looked at as a smaller group and then bring back to the large group. Okay. All right, Bill.
Bill?
I won. Woo! I really like the idea of approaching it as one in a small committee, but also approaching it as keeping things balanced and creating opportunities for that choice. Not necessarily, you know, this group of students will go here and this group of students will go here. I am wondering when the committee meets if there might be an opportunity to possibly create focuses within each school setting to allow parents to have that choice. So, and this is just an example. Let's say one of the elementary schools has a focus on, you know, because we talked about a lot of supporting ELL students. So if say that's Windsor, and so if a parent moves into Albert Bridge, and you know there's an opportunity there, you can present, you know, your son or daughter's here. Windsor has this special program for ELL. Albert Bridge has this special program for students who need this sort of support. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, so I'll say, Bill, when the school district that I came from before, we had 7 elementary schools, and all 7 of the schools had a specialty area like that. And when you have 7 schools, you can do that to a large extent, so very specified. But I think that's certainly something we can keep in mind. So I'll put that in our notes.
Amy?
It just seems, my understanding on ELL, that just the using that as an example, Windsor might have more of a program, but if a parent wants their student to remain at Albert Bridge, then our district has to provide those services to Albert Bridge.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I just used that as an example. But if there's a so for example, if Albert Bridge has this particular program that they're doing in phonics that support this group of a certain group of students, you could say to the parent, your son has this issue, and there's an opportunity to go to Albert Bridge, which is working on this particular focus. It doesn't mean that they're not going to teach reading at Windsor because there's this particular program for this certain population in Albert Bridge. And it doesn't mean that they would have to go there. It's just, if you have a particular special ed teacher, for an example, who is in one school that is trained highly in one particular area, that might be something to keep in mind when creating opportunities. And it may not work at all. It may not, this may not be something that would ever go into place.
Rebecca?
I like the idea that we have this ability, that we have these two different places, buildings, that we can grow them in ways as opposed to just having one building. I think that here's an opportunity where we can create an environment where we don't have to keep one thing or one program in one school either, or one teacher in one school. I think we can look at rotating. We can create an environment where, because both environments, Windsor and West Windsor, are just great environments. We can be moving students around, teachers around, specials around, and create. I'm just not sure what that would look like, but I think it's a special opportunity here because you do have these two buildings, because you do have great staff, because you do have great, very good administrators willing to really think out of the box and think about, how can we really move our education, 21st, 22nd, push it forward and not sort of just do what is done because that's the way it's always been done.
Thanks, Rebecca. Does anybody else have any questions or comments before I get to who would like to be involved in this? Okay, I don't see any hands or hear any bloops. So are there any people from each town who have the time and would like to be involved in this? And Nancy.
Yes.
And Amy.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Jennifer, what size of a group do you envision?
Great question. Shouldn't be too big. I would say less than 8, so 7 at the most to make it manageable.
Okay, so Bill, Nancy, and Amy working on it. Will that suffice from our board?
Yeah, I think that's great. And then we'll want to reach out to a couple of community members from both towns.
Yep.
So I don't know, Amy and Bill, Nancy, if you want to think about who that might be, who might be able to bring an interesting voice to that conversation, and reach out to them and then let me know, and I'm happy to organize it and facilitate those.
I will say, Jennifer, that one person from Brownsville who has been talking about this ever since we merged is Win Johnson. So I urge you to invite him to be a member or a part, because I think he has lots of thoughts about it.
I will reach out.
I think because, and this is just my opinion, because we have Nancy and I think it would be really important to have at least two members, two community members from Windsor. And I know that puts a lot of pressure on the Windsor individuals, but I think that would be very important to have a balance in that way.
I agree with you, Bill. Is there anybody else from Windsor who has the time and
I don't necessarily mean school board members.
Okay. Okay.
I mean people on the committee, residents. So we have two residents from West Windsor now on the committee, and we have Amy from Windsor. I think it would be good to balance, to have the committee, the involvements from the board and the community balanced as much as possible between Windsor and West Windsor.
Agreed.
Yeah, and Jennifer, I also collected way back when we were, because this is not a new topic, right? I remember Bill bringing this up when we first merged, but I have a lot of the prototypes and templates from other districts that have that inter-district choice, and in there they have some of the qualifying benchmarks. So just remind me, and I'll send you that stuff as well.
The good news is that as we get ready for our next item of discussion, which is, it's school meeting. Well, maybe we could go to review our wish list. One of the sticking points has always been transportation. And if we are able to get that van, then the transportation piece will be a lot easier to manage.
Yeah.
Oh, you're all back. Excellent. Let me see if I can turn my camera on. You don't have to look at poor Max anymore. Can you see me? No. There. How about now?
Yes, we can.
Hooray. Okay. I remember the first time I realized that there was a problem with my connection. I was like, and I think it was at this board, I was like, why are you all dots? Realizing I am the problem. Okay. All right. Jennifer, do you have what you need to yeah, okay. Great. Let's do the school meeting prep really quickly. Jennifer, here's the update on the presentation. Jennifer and I have met once, and we're going to meet again on Saturday about our dividing the roles for the presentation. She and I are both going to present together. It is on the 24th, is that right? Yeah. Amy?
Yes.
When is the Windsor Town meeting?
Monday, the 28th.
Monday the 28th. Okay. Good. That's great news. Okay. That's perfect. Because it's a hairy couple of weeks. So Jennifer and I are working on it. Does anybody have any particular wishes about things they'd absolutely like us to include? All right. Well, great. So that's where the That's where the
You have
we're meeting
complete
up.
freedom. You're all
we have
good.
we talked about where we were last year at this time, and the fact that we couldn't really take much of a backwards look last year. We could really just say that we got through the year. Uh-oh, you're all dots again. Darn it.
I have something I'd like to ask for.
Okay.
And you might already be planning this, but as I have been sitting here observing the last few times the principal meetings, I mean the principal reports, I think it'd be really important in a small sort of synopsis to include some of the intervention pieces that the two schools have shared, and it just sort of outline what's being done to move our students forward, not just sort of recovery related, but some of the steps that are being taken to focus on student needs. And that's a huge ask because there's so much in the districts that's going on. But I think if there's a small piece, sort of the really bright spots, you know, in this meeting alone, there's been some real, positive sharing between both schools about steps that are being taken. Just sort of a quick synopsis of a few things.
That is exactly well, here's what we have planned. Jennifer and I talked about the fact that a year ago, we couldn't really take a real backwards look on the experience of the pandemic to date. I noticed that sometime in the last couple of meetings, Jennifer talked about things that students are learning, coping skills that students are learning from this experience, and teachers. And so we were going to talk about some of that. We were going to talk about some of the bright points and sort of lay a foundation for where we're going in the next year. Not just recapture, not just having it be a year of recapturing or I can't think of the right word. Forgive me. All I can think of is refurbishment, and I know that's not the right word. But it's not.
Recovery?
Recovery. Thank you. Not just having a year of recovery, but having an expanse ahead of us. And here's what that expanse can look like, and here's what we have planned. Rebecca?
Along with that, and that's a great suggestion, Bill. I really did. Yeah. That resonated so much with me. Along with that, though, is maybe also give a shout out to many of the teachers that are doing, and it doesn't have to be all, but some teachers that are doing specific work with students through mentoring, through and I'm talking specifically about those teachers that have worked with students on senior capstones, because it really points out not only the interventions that are being used, but also how teachers are supporting specifically students through the year, and parents can relate to that because senior parents hear from their students, their children, about capstones. So I think that may be another important piece that is just touching the community in a very personal place.
Thank you for both of those suggestions. That's really great. And if you have any other suggestions between now and Saturday morning, that is when we are meeting next to kind of I don't know, galvanize our presentation, or or collate, or both.
So Elizabeth, when you said you're meeting the 24th, I wrote down March 24th. Am I correct?
No, February 24th at 7
Okay.
o'clock, not 6:30, but 7.
That'd make a little bit of difference.
Yeah, it will make a big, and it's remote. It's not in person. And I have a quick question for Kate and Colleen, if you're still here. It keeps popping into my mind and then popping back out. The YRBS survey, it should be coming out any day now. Am I right? Yes. I keep checking the CDC website to see whether it's out yet.
I believe it usually gets sent to our counselors. Were the ones who helped us make that happen. So it usually gets sent to our counselors to help us distribute. I do not know exactly when it's coming.
Okay. If you could possibly tip me off as soon as you get it.
I will.
We're working hard at the legislature to address student mental health issues, and that would really be a great thing to be able to bring into the equation. Amy, I see your hand. I'm sorry to sidetrack there.
Elizabeth, you might want to check with Mount Prevention Partnership. Because they will be getting it before the school does. At least in the past, it's kind of like olden day kneecap. The information was a little bit embargoed for just a little bit, so that the prevention partnerships could kind of get a handle on how to present the data.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
David?
Did you plan on putting anything in about these capital reserve wish list, or do you want to just stay away from that?
In our presentation?
Right.
I don't know. What does the board think about that? And
I would stay away from it. Not to keep everyone in the dark, but I am just way too excited about the positive things and the education that you can bring to informing the community what's happening to the schools.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to muddle the water with money.
I agree.
All right. Nancy, I see your hand.
Yes, I wondered if you wanted to mention, I'm just not sure you want to mention yet, that a committee has been formed or is being formed for the having students come to the various schools. I don't know if you want to mention that at the meeting, but that would be something exciting to the community, that there would be school choice.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I think that'd be something good to share. I'd be cautious about it, though, at the beginning of the process. I would, I think it would be better to let the committee get formed in the discussion to start to pound out, even if we want to do it. We haven't even decided that. That's my only.
I agree with Bill, because just mentioning that there's going to be a committee, people can jump to all kinds of conclusions and start to, the sky can start falling quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I tend to agree. Nancy, I do think it's exciting. And it'll be, I think it'll be a fun exploration, but we don't want to sidetrack from the issue, from the actual budget presentation, or get people distracted. Okay, anybody else? Wait, I see something.
Elizabeth, just one more question about the school meeting on the 24th. Are we all set? We're all set on a moderator, and we're all set. Or are you going to get to that? Have you?
I thought we were going to have Justin Burrows do it.
Yeah, that was my thought. I just want to make sure that we've confirmed that. I think he was even elected last year to do it. I mean, and then how about somebody to take the minutes? Amy, where are we with that?
Where are we with that? Good question. There's someone I want to reach out to see, but yeah, I'll talk with you about that, David.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And just as long as you keep in touch with Lori and I mean, we're just going to have a backup, and it has to be. Does it have to be a Windsor resident?
No, it just has to be a resident of either Windsor or West Windsor.
Okay, that's what I meant.
It doesn't matter.
It has to be a resident, though, of the Mount Scottney School District.
Correct.
So it's not like I could, in a pinch, ask Lori Brown to do it.
So I not necessarily to throw my ex-wife under the bus, but I don't mind doing that. But that's one of the skills that she is extremely good at.
I like that idea.
So should I get in touch with her?
I would say yes.
Okay. How about I will send you an email to get contact info from you, Bill?
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right, here we are at 8:16. Oh, hold on one second. My computer's about to die. Oh, I heard a hand. Angie
That was
Ledoux.
me. That was me, Elizabeth. I just wanted to point out, I put in the chat a link to the YRBS state resource there, and we won't get any data to mid to late fall.
Oh, okay.
That's depressing.
Yeah.
That's really disappointing. Oh, well, okay.
Maybe
Well, I won't-
maybe
I
they'll
won't
be
keep looking
faster.
in
but-
February.
Yeah, so that is kind of typical.
I'm not surprised because the surveys were done in the fall and it has to go through the CDC. I imagine that it's a rather onerous task. So, but I'll get a hold of MAP and ask them to keep an eye out for me, no matter what the timing is. But thank you for that link. I've been refreshing it every day. Okay. We're now in the territory of discussing our wish list. Do we want to do that today, or do we want to wait until after we have reorganized? That was my question.
That might not be a bad idea. What do people think?
Well, I don't mind throwing out a few pieces of discussion. I think it might be good to spend 10 minutes on it, just sort of to refresh ourselves.
I would like that too.
Okay. All right. So I think Jennifer, Kate, and Colleen, is there any update on the van cost?
Yeah, we did get an estimate, right, Jen? I think it was 35,000 or 38,000. I think that was you had the slide of all the estimated costs, and I think those are reasonable.
I wondered whether I drove behind a short passenger van up to Montpelier the other day home from Montpelier the other day through the storm on Friday. and it was a four-wheel drive van, and I wondered whether this is also four-wheel drive. It was like a Chevy. It surprised me.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a BMW top high-end thing.
I think the one you're looking at there is not four-wheel,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. I mean, you know, or front wheel.
I
Remember
can look into
the,
it.
go ahead, Jen.
I'm just saying I can look into a four-wheel drive van.
I think in the last discussion we discussed about the difference between it, like a 10 and a 15 passenger, and
Well,
the point that I brought up was the fact that there is a difference in licensing qualification, but
Right.
but if you have a 15 passenger or the larger size van, that doesn't mean it can't be used by someone for less students. You know, if you build it, they will come. And so if you have the size, and then it can be used for that, as well as transporting smaller students, a smaller number of students. If you have a smaller van, you can't then transport more students. They're not
Right.
allowed to tie them on the roof. The state police tend to
Got a cart,
frown
a
on
little
that.
cart on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, time on the. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Bill. That's not a bad thought. And remember, what Bill's talking about is that once you, by state law, only schools, which is kind of crazy, but once you get over 10, you have to have the CDL. But it doesn't mean you couldn't buy a 15 passenger van, you know, and then who knows? We've got
Transport the minimum value for someone
minimum
without a
right.
CDL.
Or maybe
And
somebody comes along and gets the CDL. You never know.
Yeah, Bill's idea was to add a stipend for somebody to get the CDL.
Right. Getting a CDL isn't particularly difficult.
No.
So to give a bonus for getting a CDL for staff, I have no problem with that. No problem adding that to a MOA.
Yeah.
And what's an MOA?
Modified MOA. Modified. I can't remember the agreement. So you modify the contract. So if you add some sort of compensation, we may not have to do that because we have other stipends that we can add to the stipend section is pretty loosely written, so I don't see that would be required.
The only other issue with a 15 passenger van, or you know, I don't know if that's the biggest they make, but the Econoline and the, you know, they tend to be rear wheel. I have not seen front wheel or four wheel drive vans, but we can do a little bit more investigating.
Yeah, I am positive because I drove behind it that there's one that's like a Chevy. Yeah, Chevy that has a four-wheel drive, and I think that would be, I mean, for Vermont, that would be pretty great.
At the same time, if you're going to take a group of students on a trip where you would need four-wheel drive, it may be a good idea to reschedule that trip.
Yeah.
Well, you never know. It could be like you're up at the Capitol and a foot of snow gets dumped in 3 hours, and you're ill-equipped to drive home with a rear drive van with a bunch of kids going.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily disagreeing, but at the same time,
it's a safe. I would feel safer having it.
I don't.
But it also, if it doubles the cost, then no. But
four-wheel drive tends to give people a false sense of security because the fact is, it just allows you to go faster. It doesn't mean that your brakes all work the same.
Even if it was front-wheel drive, I know. Even if it was front-wheel drive, that would still be better than rear wheel drive.
Except you've got a load.
Yeah.
It all depends
You're
on what
talking
your
to a
load is.
farmer
You're
now.
talking to a farmer. You know, if I'm driving a truck that's unloaded, yeah, I want front wheel drive. If I'm driving a truck with a load of hay, which I've done in a snowstorm, I want rear wheel drive because that's where the traction is.
I tell you, how about if I look at 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, and front-wheel drive, and I'll just see what we can
All
find.
right.
Yeah.
With all your
Okay.
extra time.
That's just a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and Jim's got good connections, Jen, so he can chase it. Do you think that's our priority right now? Then, Elizabeth, is that what you're saying? That we want to get that cost first.
Yeah, there were 4 things. There was that. There was the microphones.
Yeah, the microphone. Yeah, we've got prices on those.
And
As long as there's ceiling installed, that's the sort of the one thing. You know, I would encourage as many as possible, but I definitely would encourage the ceiling speakers because that's where most of the damage comes in. Is for the desktop versions.
Right. Yeah, there's the voice enhancement quote. And and that was ceiling. And then the only other one that I had comment on, because I met with Jim and Larry, we meet, you know, not every week, but almost every week, was we had talked about lights on the field. But one of the things that Jim Taft said, and he's been at, you know, he really thinks this thing through, that we have a struggling football team right now. We have one freshman or one 8th grader that's playing football right now. So it's not the football programs. So what Jim said is, you just want to, if you were going to invest in lights on the field, which I know was one of our items, that you'd also have to do something with the turf, because you'd have to make it a multi-purpose field. You'd have to be able to play field hockey, you know, soccer, lacrosse, all of those things on that field, not just football.
Rebecca?
I think when we talked about the lights on the field, we had asked the principals who exactly was interested in having the lights on the field, and because it wasn't all students who really decided to have this. We thought that maybe we really needed to think about purchasing something that really was a small group of students that requested it, and is that fair? But I think that we were there questioning whether that was something we wanted to move towards.
Davis?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there also a discussion of looking at like renting lights or doing some sort of more event-based thing rather than looking to a full install right up front, you know, kind of piloting it with something more temporary?
I think that was mentioned, Davis.
Yeah.
I thought that was, my impression was that part of that the discussion on the lights was what led us to ask the students what they wanted.
Right.
Right.
And then when we asked the students what they wanted, we really only heard from one classroom. Amy and then Rebecca.
I think Rebecca was first, but so as far as the community is concerned, I know that in the past there has been off and on a group in the community who has wanted lights on the field. At one point, we were told, and I don't know if this is true, but there had been wiring put out there for future possibilities of the field being lit. And I know at one point, I don't remember how long ago it was, but the school borrowed lights, and we did have at least one night game, and everyone was just so excited and thrilled with the possibility of doing that again. But it has been a while, and we've certainly had about 100 other things that have taken priority than lights on the field.
Thank you, Amy. Rebecca, and then Bill.
I was looking back at my notes, and I thought we talked about audio improvement for classrooms that, and we were looking at possibly 10 units for 10 classrooms.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
That's the microphones that we were just talking about. And Bill said that he'd prefer them to be, they absolutely have to be ceiling installed. Or the speakers have to be ceiling installed. Bill, you took your hand down. Davis?
I think that's an old hand too.
Okay.
Oh no,
It's not, okay.
Yeah.
no, I said Bill, did you have something to say still, or?
Yeah, I just I still hesitate on the lights piece, except for the fact I really like Jim Taft's point. I mean, there would really have to be some planning around making that field multi-use, and I think it'd be important to get the community input on that.
Yeah. The other thing Jim said is that at one point when they were seriously considering this, and I don't know whether Colleen, Kate, or anybody else would remember this, that there was quite a bit of chatter among the neighbors. And if we had to go through Act 250, that would mean that the neighbors would have to weigh in on those lights and how often those lights would be on and for what events and all of that stuff. I like Davis's thought around maybe we need to go back to one or two events where we give it a try, see what it looks like. I know they do sell those portable lights and you can make it work. So I'll talk to Jim about that. The other thing too, that Larry doesn't want to fall off of our radar, but we might have even put that in the budget. But that was the cafeteria upgrade. That was there too.
I think that's in the budget.
I think we did put that in the budget. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did. Elizabeth, just in terms of timing, because I know you had a commitment on 8:30. We do have one item for action that I forgot to mention at the beginning, and that's Mary Shell, the Mary Shell resignation. We didn't deal with it last time because we weren't sure exactly the timing of this, but I can speak to it, or Colleen or Kate can speak to it, but we really need to accept her resignation. I can explain it too. Her last day is Friday, the 11th, and Mary's been a very good player in our school and very creative, out of the box thinker. Yeah. So just want to leave time for that.
Okay, thank you for pointing out the time, David. Would it be all right if we set aside the discussion of our wish list until our next meeting? Okay. Okay. Then items for action are solely accepting Mary Shell's resignation.
Right. And Mary, right before the holidays, Mary stumbled on a job, which is sort of a dream job for her, which is pretty close to her house. But it's more flexible pathways coordinator and sort of community organizer and student advocate, all the stuff Mary loves to do and has dreamed of doing. And so she came to Colleen and Kate and asked if she could be released from her contract, and talked with me too. And we didn't, we couldn't accommodate the timeline she wanted to, but she was patient. The other district was patient. And upon finding a suitable replacement, temporarily. I mean, we'll advertise that position, but we feel we can now accept her resignation, and her last day will be Friday the 11th.
Okay, Amy?
I move that we accept her resignation with regret because, oh my gosh, she is, I think she's kind of a rock star. She came from a state organization that promoted student based learning. I'm falling apart in my brain. And she's just been, I think, an amazing teacher and something that's been really good for our district. And I'm excited for her, and I also think that we will continue to benefit from the work that she does.
Nicely said, Amy. Do I have a second to accept her resignation?
Aye. Rebecca.
Okay. Okay. Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye. Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
And Amy?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. And concerning our next agenda,
Do we have the date, Elizabeth?
no, we don't have the date, but it'll be our reorganizational meeting.
Okay. So it looks like it could be the 7th. Does that work for everybody?
Yes, or it does for me. Yep.
That would be consistent with our time, so.
Yeah, works for me.
So let's do track my progress. I'd like to actually, so we'll have a reorganization. We'll have the presentation of track my progress. I'd really like to also, should there be any good questions that need to be answered that come from our annual meeting, I think we should do that too.
Okay.
And what else?
I also put down board reorganization just because that has to happen, right?
Right.
The wish list.
And the wish list.
Right. I've got that on there too. Good. And then the HACTC representative.
Well, that'll be part of the reorganization.
Okay. Okay.
And that we'll talk about intra-district choice.
Yes.
Good.
And one more thing. I think we should have a section on Jedi.
On what?
The Jedi, Windsor Jedi Committee.
Sort of an update.
An update, and we can also discuss what we, I'm quite sure that we'll have next steps that come from the meeting on the 16th.
Yeah. Okay. That's a pretty healthy agenda.
All right. Does anybody have anything else left?
No, I'm going to send the little bit of minutes I've got here to you, Elizabeth and Bill. And then if you want to, and Lori, but then if we want to work on it as a shared doc, we can.
Okay. I'll take a motion to end the meeting.
So moved.
Amy seconds.
Okay. All those in favor of ending the meeting, please just unmute yourselves and say good night.
Aye. Good night.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night, everybody. Thank you. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Thanks.